If you decided to back a second referendum or a people's vote, because that's what the membership conference want, what do you propose or expect the question would be? Because if it is a vote on the deal, would it be a binary decision between accepting Theresa May's deal that she brings back or to remain? Because if we go back to Jeremy Corbyn saying that you respect the result of the vote and the vote was to Brexit, how on earth would that question respect the vote?
Yeah, this is the discussion and the debate that needs to be had, not just within our own party, but also with the government itself if it comes to a people's vote, because that will be determined by Parliament, the form of language, the words, the question that we put. My understanding of what the discussion, certainly within our party, has been all about is respect the referendum, but the deal that comes back, if it's not acceptable to Parliament, we should have a general election or keep the option of a people's vote on the deal on the table. And in that case, then, it will be about whether you accept the deal or not, or whether you send people back to negotiate a proper deal. And we've said all the way along, we believe we can negotiate a deal that protects jobs and the economy and establishes a new relationship with Europe, which I believe will bring our country back together again.
So your suggestion...
Our country is still split.
Yeah, I mean, well, without a doubt. But your suggestion then would be in a referendum, people would be allowed to vote for the deal as it is or send the government back and renegotiate. And then how many times do we have that referendum?
Yeah. OK, Parliament will determine, obviously, what would be on any ballot paper on a people's vote. My view, I think what's emerging from all the consensus building that's going on at the moment, because that's what we need to try and achieve a consensus, it will be on the deal itself. And then if the deal is unacceptable, that Theresa May brings back, you send a new team in, as far as I'm concerned, to negotiate a proper deal. That's why I want a general election, you know, because in a general election, you don't just determine the issue, you choose the team that will do the negotiations. And I think that's why, in terms of the consensus that's been built within the Labour Party, and that's exactly what we want.
OK, John McDonnell, I don't want to labour the point here, but I do think it's important. I want clarity from you about this issue of nuclear defence of this country. Because
You've got clarity. I've got clarity. I've just told you.
Labour
Party
Can I ask a question?
I've repeated it 3 times.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go on.
Can I respond? It's really not funny to me. But anyway, let's ask a simple question.
No, it's not funny. What's funny is your interviewing style.
OK, you may not like my interviewing style.
All you do is you recite your own view.
Yeah, we may not be mutual fans of each other's styles. It doesn't matter. Let me ask you this. Right, who authorises the use of our nuclear weapons in this country? Do you know?
It will be in any circumstances, it would be a government decision.
Actually, that's not true. Only the Prime Minister can authorise a deployment of nuclear missiles.
It's a government. Well, the reality is this, isn't it? When
that is the reality.
You take those. Well, no. Let me finish a sentence. In government, what happens, as you know, the reality is this: that within government there will be a discussion, within cabinet there will be a discussion, and the Prime Minister then will make the decision on the basis of the discussions that take place within cabinet, but actually it must probably be wider than that within Parliament and the wider community.
But Jeremy Corbyn is on the record. Jeremy Corbyn, who may be Prime Minister, is on the record as saying he would never authorise the use of nuclear weapons. The only person in the country who can authorise the use of nuclear weapons in Britain is the Prime Minister. If Jeremy Corbyn is Prime Minister before Christmas, I would like to know whether he would ever authorise the use of nuclear weapons to defend this country. I don't think that's unreasonable, given he may be Prime Minister.
It isn't unreasonable. Well, I'm telling you, it isn't unreasonable, so let me answer. The Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, when he's in government, will obviously take the decision on the basis of the advice that he's given by the Cabinet, the discussions that have taken place in Parliament and in the country overall, and weighing all those matters up, he will then come to that decision.
Well, that's a very significant...
That's the way things have always occurred.
That's very significant then. So what you're saying is if the advice he gets is to use nuclear weapons, he would use them.
What I'm saying is that's the way decisions are made.
But would he use them? Would he use them in that eventuality?
We will see, because that will be the decision made at that time, in that particular instance, on the basis of the consultations and discussions that will take in place in government as normal.
I'm sorry to be annoying. I know it's annoying, my style. I just want clarity.
No,
I think
you're
it's
not annoying me.
incredibly,
It's your style that's
it's
annoying me.
incredibly important to know what the Prime Minister of this country would do in terms of defending this
heard.
country, right? Well, I still don't know exactly what you're saying. Jeremy Corbyn has said categorically many times, and you have said this, and Diane Abbott, who might be Home Secretary, has said this, that they would never use, and he would never authorise the use of nuclear weapons. You've just said, I think, something different. You've just said that if his advice,
No, I've
if
said-
his advice is
I've said
that
how
he should
decisions
use
are made in
them,
government.
he would use them. Is that right?
I've said this, how decisions are made in government, full stop.
If his advice was to use them from his own government, would he use them?
Look, I've told you how decisions are made in government. That's how any decision will be made in the future. These are hypothetical situations, but that's how government decisions are made.
You don't
And
think
that's
with the
how any
current
Prime Minister
you don't think
operates
with
the
the,
theatre.
you don't think with the Russians authorising assassinations on British soil and the Russians being a nuclear power that one of the single most important questions for any incoming government and Prime Minister is how they might defend ourselves as a nation against a nuclear power. And again,
I think one of the most important.
I'll simply repeat to you,
One of the
Jeremy
most important
Corbyn,
decisions.
if
Well,
Jeremy
I'll tell
Corbyn's
you,
Prime Minister,
here's one
he's
of
the
the most
only
important-
person, Jeremy Corbyn,
Yeah.
if he's Prime Minister, John McDonnell, is the only person in the country
Yeah.
who can authorise the use of nuclear weapons. I just want to know, if it
Piers
comes to
Morgan.
it, and he is advised to do so, would he press the button or not?
Piers Morgan, one of the most important decisions at the moment is how do we reduce this tension and reduce the potential of conflict to ensure that nothing escalates to that level. That's why we've been arguing time and time again. What you do is you make sure you use the appropriate sanctions to protect our country. And the most appropriate sanctions at the moment are, first of all, to hit them in their pockets and hit them hard and deter them in that way. Then, yes, at some stage in the future, you open up the dialogue again to ensure that you prevent conflict in the future. That will be the role of a future Labour
That wasn't the
government.
question
That's
I
the
asked.
serious
That wasn't the
politics that
question
we're
I
into
asked
now.
you.
No, but I'm telling you the reality of what's going on now and how we approach this issue. And the issue is a serious discussion about how we reduce conflict, how do we prevent conflict in the future. And that will be in which I think a Labour government could become a world leader.
Yeah, but the trouble is, and again, with respect, the trouble is you may be in power. Within 2 months, you might be the government. Jeremy
Yes, and
Corbyn
I've
might
just
be the
told you the
Prime
policy
Minister.
we'll be
I
pursuing.
still don't know what happens
Okay.
if Jeremy Corbyn is advised as British
Well,
Prime
I'll tell you,
Minister
shall I?
that he should use nuclear weapons to defend this country. I still don't know if the answer is he will use them. And I would appreciate you, as the
Okay.
Deputy Leader, rather than endlessly mocking my interview technique, to simply tell our viewers, never mind me, what would happen if Jeremy Corbyn is given firm advice to deploy nuclear weapons to defend this country?
One, I'm not the Deputy Leader. That's the first thing. I'm the Shadow Chancellor. Secondly, I'm telling you what a Labour government would do if we come to power in this autumn. What we will do is introduce a policy where we reduce tension, but at the same time we use the appropriate sanctions to prevent actions on our territory any time in the future. In that way, we become a government that reduces tension, prevents conflict, and we do not allow situations to escalate where there's a threat of nuclear
But what if they
weapons
escalate?
being used by any country.
What if they escalate, John?
We
Seriously?
don't. Look, we've said to you what our policy is. It's to maintain a nuclear deterrent. But our role as a government will be do everything we possibly can to ensure we have effective sanctions, we operate effectively a foreign policy that
I get all
prevents
this.
conflict.
But what happens if we actually have to use the deterrent that costs this country tens of billions of pounds?
Well, no. I've told you what our nuclear policy is time and time again, democratically decided by our party.
Okay.
All right,
We're now in a situation.
John-
Let's get real. We're now in a situation where what we've got to do is, first of all, use the most effective sanctions we possibly can to prevent any actions on our territory
Right.
once again.
Okay.
Then we then, as a government,
I'm just
we
going to ask
operate
one more
to
time.
lead
I'm just going to
in
ask one more
conflict
time.
prevention.
I'm going to ask one more time, right? Okay.
You know, I'll
just
tell you the
gonna
same
ask you-
answer. You know what our policy is.
I'm going to ask you one
Well, I'll
more time
respond
for a
in
straight
exactly the same
answer
way.
to a straight question. If
You've got a
Jeremy,
straight- you've
if
got a
Jeremy,
straight answer.
if Jeremy Corbyn is Prime Minister and he is given firm advice from his military and his government to deploy nuclear weapons to defend this country, would he deploy them? Yes or no?
You've got a straight answer. It will be a government decision that the Prime Minister would abide by. And that decision as far as I'm concerned, will be one in the best interest of our country. But the most important thing now is to concentrate on the real and present threat.
I get it, but what you just said,
and then what we do is we have a policy of reducing tensions, effective sanctions, and preventing conflict.
Well,
that's the reality of where we are now, not some hypothetical future.
I have no wish to raise tensions in this interview, but what you've just said, unless I misheard you, is that if the advice is to use nuclear weapons, then Jeremy Corbyn would act on that advice and he would use them. Is that what you said?
What I've said is that exactly what our policy is, which is to maintain a nuclear deterrent, and a government decision will be taken over that in the individual circumstances. We cannot now deal with a hypothetical question like this. What we've got to deal with is the reality that we're facing. The reality that we're facing is that it looks as though we've had an attack on our shores which has been motivated by a foreign power. How do we deal with that? We deal with it effectively by ensuring that we hit them in the pocket financially, but also we build up now a negotiating process after that which reduces tension in the world overall. Conflict prevention is what we're all about. And I think that's what people want.
All right. I have no idea what Jeremy Corbyn would do in that position, but I appreciate
John McDonnell, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. It's going to end the conflict in that particular exchange.
I don't think it's a difficult question.
I
think it's a fairly fundamental question for anyone who's Prime Minister of his country. If you have a nuclear deterrent, which Labour signs up to, the Trident system, £100 billion of deterrent, would you use it if you had to defend the country?
Well, I think we can all infer from that interview that unless you can say, yes, we would use it, that you would do everything you can to avoid using it.